Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a demo and review of the Kiara Sky dip powder system. So I purchased the entire liquid system. If you guys saw my latest nail polish and nail art haul. So I have, let me put these in order. So the first bottle that I have here is the Bond bottle. The second one is the base. The third one is the Seal Protect. The fourth one is the top coat. The fifth one is the Nourish oil, which is essentially like a cuticle oil. And the sixth bottle is the Brush Saver. So out of all of these, I would recommend getting the base, the Seal Protect, and the top coat. These are the ones that I have found that are essential to the system. The Bond one, this one is more like a dehydrator, so you can use any dehydrator in my opinion and replace this first step. The Nourish oil is essentially a cuticle oil, so you can use this or you can use your favorite cuticle oil. I will say that this does not have a very strong scent to it. So if you are looking for an oil that doesn't smell fruity or florally or anything like that, this is a good one, but it's not the best oil I've ever used. And the Brush Saver, I have found some good use for it, and especially with your base coat and your top coat. If you do end up getting the set, I think the Brush Saver is a good idea, but I don't think it's essential to getting a good manicure. So if you just wanted to get a couple of these, the second step, the third step, and the fourth step, I think that's a good place to start if you want to save a little bit of money and then eventually invest in the rest of the system. I did purchase that entire bundle off of Amazon, and I will leave it linked down below. So the second thing we're going to be testing out today is this Kiara Sky dip powder recycling system. I wanted to do a first impression on this, but I actually lost all the footage when I originally did this manicure. And it's this really cool little system here. It comes with a little container here, and then it has two kind of little trays or scoops here. I'm going to be using the Kiara Sky dip powder in the color Peachin', and I'm also going to be using the Kiara Sky dip powder. This is a larger tub, as you see. Here's the color dip powder, and then this larger tub here is in clear. It is one of the recommended steps that Kiara Sky, the system recommends, to do a clear top coat on top of two coats of this colored base. So I'm going to show you how I do my dip manicure. I'm going to show you a clip of how I remove my dip manicure, and then I'm going to show you guys swatches of all of the dip colors that I currently have in my collection. I will also leave a video linked in the description cards of how to create your own custom dip color if you don't want to invest in all of these dip powder colors, because they do get kind of pricey. The first thing I would say is that this dip system was created to use on your natural nail. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do this manicure on your natural nail today. And then the second thing is you can also use a tip if you wanted to. So this nail actually broke. I don't know if you guys can see that there. So my natural nail currently comes out to there. So I actually have an acrylic tip, and then I've done the dip powder on top of that because I didn't want to cut down the rest of my natural nails. So the rest of my nails are my natural nails. I wanted to go ahead and use the dip powder to elongate my nail and help it kind of grow out. And that's why I originally purchased the dip system, is if I had a break or a nail that was weak, I could use the dip powder to kind of help the nail as it grew out. And I've loved using the system for that reason. So the very first thing I'm gonna do here is I'm actually going to push back my cuticle and kind of get rid of any dead skin that I may have on my cuticle, and then I'm gonna go in with this very, very fine grit. This is extremely fine grit, so it's not going to damage your nails or anything like that. And I'm gonna go in and kind of file away any dead skin that I may have on my nails, you know what I mean, like any little bumps or anything that I may have on my natural nails. This is a step that I actually do when I'm just painting my nails with regular nail polish. And the last step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with some isopropyl alcohol and just kind of wipe down my nail and make sure I get any residue or any oils off of my nail and kind of clean it off, just so that we have a nice clean little base to start with. And it's going to take a couple seconds to dry. All right, so let's move on to our first step. So our first step is the bond step. So I'm gonna go ahead, and like I said, this is pretty much a dehydrator, and I'm gonna go ahead and apply it over my entire nail. If you are doing this over like an acrylic nail, you only need to apply this over the natural nail portion. You don't necessarily need to apply this over the artificial nail. The next step is going to be the base coat. So what you do is you go in with a very thin layer of your base coat. You don't want to make it super thick, and you also want to be as even as possible. And you're gonna have to do a lot of reshaping if you let it pool, or you know, you have certain areas where it's a little too clumpy. So if you start off with a nice even layer, you won't have to do a lot of reshaping when you're done with dipping your nails. So let me show you what I do. I go in and I dip down once in my bottle. I lightly tap on the side, and that's how much I use for the length of nail that I have. So I push all the way back, go forward, I go down the middle. I'm going to turn my nail slightly, and then I'm going to go down the side, and I'm going to turn my nail slightly again, and I'm going to go down the other side, okay? So I do like to go over at least once or twice, right? And I do like to kind of cap my tip just a little bit, but you don't want to wait too long before applying your powder. So I'm going to scoop, and then I'm going to dust right down the nail. I'm going to turn my nail and dust on one side, and then I'm going to turn my nail and dust on the other side. So you see how I did that there? So then I'm going to tap, 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 and put this first scoop back in. See how I did that there? So I let this powder sit for just a couple of seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my lid on this, because this powder does tend to go everywhere, especially if you sneeze or blow on it. I have actually had that happen to me. So I'm gonna let this sit here for just a second. I'm actually gonna take this scoop out for a second, and then I'm going to tap, 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 and let all of that powder fall back down into the container. That is your first coat. I do suggest letting this sit for about a minute to 2 minutes if you can, if you have time, just to let the powder and this acrylic or this base coat just kind of sit there and just kind of melt together. So that's my suggestion. So I normally at this point move on and do my entire hand. So I repeat this step for all of my fingers while this is just kind of sitting here and kind of melting together. So then once it's sat here for a bit, I go in with a kabuki brush here. You can use any soft bristled makeup brush that you perhaps don't use for makeup. Make sure it's nice and clean. This is the brush that I use for every time I do a dip powder manicure. And the reason I like the kabuki brush is because it's a brush that has kind of like a short handle, and it can just kind of sit flat just like that. And I do wash this periodically to get all of the dip powder out of it. But you want a soft bristled brush, and I have this little shot glass here, and this is what I kind of store my kabuki brush in here, just so I won't get like powder everywhere. And you're lightly going to brush off any excess powder that might be on your nail. And the reason I like to brush it off is because you're gonna have a very thin layer of powder on there. And when you go in with a second coat of base coat, that powder is going to get on your brush. It's going to cause the base to apply unevenly. It's gonna stain your brush. So it's just better just to kind of lightly dust it away. So, okay, we're gonna go in with the second coat of your color, just like we did, right? Just like we did with the first coat. So I'm lightly gonna tap it. And this one, I definitely is a little bit easier because you can see the coat as you're putting it on. So I like to start from the back and kind of slowly drag this base coat along the powder. If you go too quick, it may be a little bit spotty. So I kind of slowly drag it and try to make it as even as I can, right? And then I take out the bottom one and I apply it the same way I had applied it earlier. So down the center, then I turn, and then I turn the other way, right? And again, back down the center. And again, I'm gonna let this sit for about a minute or so, and then repeat the step of brushing it off with my kabuki brush. And then let me show you, before I go in with the clear coat, how to clean up this little system if you are gonna transfer any leftover powders back into your container. So I brush the top off, right? Open my container. I dump my little scoopula here back into the container, and then with that kabuki brush, I just kind of brush everything back into my container there. Okay. And this is why I do go back and clean my kabuki brush as often as I can. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the second scoop and try to get as much as that powder back into the container. See that? And then the nice thing about this container is that it does have a little hole. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. So if you have any powder that fell on the bottom and you just kind of tap, it'll actually fall out of that hole. I don't know if it was designed that way, but it seems to work out really well. So I'm actually not going to use this system for the clear powder. I'm just going to go ahead and dip my finger into the clear powder because it is such a large container. And I'm going to do the same thing, do step number 2. I'm going to do about the same amount for step number 2. And then I'm going to dip it into the clear powder. And this is something that I do recommend doing, even if you have especially if you have like the glitter version of any of these dip powders, because it makes it so much easier to kind of file down. I'm going to dip it a few times. So it makes it so much easier to kind of file down, and so that you don't have any issues with filing away any of the glitter or any of the colors. Okay, so now we're going to go back in, same as we did before with our little kabuki brush, and we're going to gently, you know, brush off any of that excess powder. And then I'll show you guys what to do next. So we're gonna go in with the step number 3, which is the seal protect step. And this basically, what I have found, it kind of like activates, I would say, I don't exactly know if that's the right word, but it kind of activates the dip system, and it allows that like base coat and the dip powder to like really kind of melt together and harden. Because what I have found is that sometimes it's not fully hardened, like that base, that coat of base coat, it's still kind of gel-like. I like to let this just sit for a minute, and then we're gonna go in and just kind of file and buff out anything, and shape our nail if we have to. Okay, so first I'm gonna go in with this like rougher grit nail file. I have one here that I got from an acrylic, like it was like an acrylic nail set. So I like to go in first and shape my nail, and then I go in and kind of smooth everything out. So I'm gonna go in with this rougher grit one kind of around the sides. Honestly, I find that when I use this system and when I've been using this recycling system, I haven't really found a need to kind of shape my nails on the top part. So I'm just gonna go in with a buffing block and just kind of buff everything out, and just to make sure everything is nice and smooth for when I go in and apply my top coat. So I'm gonna quickly do this and I'll be right back. All right, so now the second to last step is the top coat. So your top coat, you want to do a very, very thin layer of, and you don't want to go over it too many times. So I'm just going to go down one side, down the other side, and then down the middle. And I'm just going to leave it like that, because one thing I have found is that you pretty much are going to need 2 coats of top coat to get that really nice and pretty shiny top coat, because it's, as you're going to see in a little bit, it's going to get a little bit dull. So like I said, you do want to go in with a second coat of top coat once this first top coat has completely dried and solidified. All right, and then the last step, you know, I always suggest this step no matter what manicure you're doing. The 5th step is to apply some of your Nourish oil. So I'm going to apply that around the cuticle region. And then I like to apply it underneath the nail. So just go right in there and apply it directly to the bottom part of your nail, and just kind of let that sit for a second and then just kind of rub it in. All right, so easy peasy. I really like the dip powder system, and I really like this little recycling system from Kiara Sky. I found that it really does make using the dip powder system so much easier. So I'm going to show you a few clips of how I actually removed the dip powder. So first you're going to go in with a really rough grit nail file. The rougher the better. And you're going to completely file the entire top part of your nail, the sides of your nail, and just try to file it so that you don't see anything shiny anymore. Because if you don't remove the top coat, it's not going to allow the acetone to completely seep through into the dip powder. So that first step is very, very important. And like I said, the rougher grit, the better. And then what you're going to do is you want to use pure acetone. Do not use just regular nail polish remover, because regular nail polish remover is not pure acetone, and a lot of the times it has conditioners in it, which it's not going to be potent enough to remove the dip powder. You want to use 100% pure acetone. I have these little clippies that I had purchased years ago off of Amazon. I'll link these down below if I can. So you're going to take a piece of cotton, and I like to roll out my cotton ball, and I like to make this piece of cotton, I kind of double it up if I can, and you're going to completely soak that with as much acetone as possible. Place it on top of your nail and then place the clip. So you're going to let your nails soak for a minimum of 15 minutes. I'd say 15 minutes is kind of like that sweet spot. If you choose to let it soak for half an hour, that's fine too, but a minimum of 15 minutes in order for it to completely saturate the dip powder and really soften it up. And as you can see from the clip, it's super easy to remove it. You just take off the clip, and then you just kind of swipe off or slide off that dip powder. If you find that you have any residue still left on your nails, you can go back in with a second piece of cotton, let it sit for, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then finish, swiping off or wiping off any of that residue. It's that easy, you guys. It doesn't damage your nails. I really, really like this system for my natural nails. There is no filing off that you have to do. And then you would just go back in with some cuticle oil to kind of replenish some of those oils that you have kind of taken away from your nails after letting it soak with acetone for about half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour. Alrighty, so let's move on to the swatches that I have of all of the current colors that I have from Kiara Sky specifically in my collection. So I recently did a haul and review, or a haul, excuse me, of all of these dip powders or a lot of these newer colors. So I wanted to show you guys the swatches. I did them on these little swatch sticks. So you guys can get a better idea of what these colors look like once, you know, they've actually been applied to the nail. What I find is that these Kiara Sky colors are pretty true to color what they're gonna come out like on the nail. So this first one is this lovely blue called Take Me to Paradise. I think this one is extremely opaque, and I think you're only gonna need 2 coats of it in order to get it this color. This is 2 coats with 1 coat of that clear powder. Then I have Bubble Yum. This is another one is, this is another color that I do think is extremely opaque, and I think you're only gonna need 2 coats of this. Then I have Main Squeeze. This is a really pretty kind of light yellow, especially in comparison to some of the other brighter colors that I have in my collection. This one is deceptively opaque, but I do think you may need 3 coats of this one or 3 dips of this one in order to get it this really nice color, because I can still kind of see a little bit of my nail underneath this swatch stick. The next one is called Drop It Like It's Hot, and I love this color. It's not coming off as bright as it is in person. It is this bright neon green, absolutely gorgeous, and I think 2 coats or 2 dips of this color will be absolutely perfect. This next one, Sunny Days, I just love it because yellows are notoriously difficult to get opaque. And this one really is like a Sunny D color. And it just took 2 dips of this color to get it really, really opaque. And I think you really are only going to need 2 dips of that color on your natural nail. The next color is called Gimme a Beat. And I think this one may need 3 coats. It's this really pretty teal color. But what tends to happen is, and what I noticed, is that it did kind of yellow a little bit on the tip. I don't know if that's just something that I had on this swatch stick and it was causing it to react that way, but it did kind of make it a little bit murky on the tip of the swatch stick here. So I would be careful if you do purchase this color. And then the last of my cream colors that I have is the Lilac. You guys may have seen me wear this color on a few of my most recent videos, and I absolutely love this color. This was a great color to wear in like March, April time. It was like a perfect color to wear for Easter. And then I have a few glitter shades. So the first one is called Vegas Strip. And I honestly don't really care for this color all that much. It's very, very glittery, but even with 3 coats of this, you can still see your nail underneath. What I may do is I may end up doing 2 coats of Gimme a Beat with just 1 coat of Vegas Strip on top of it. And I think that would make for a really pretty manicure. But honestly, Vegas Strip on its own, it's not opaque enough. It's not a chunky enough glitter to get opaque enough on its own. So I think it would be a really nice glitter topper. But these next 3 I absolutely love. So I picked up just a basic silver. So you have sterling here. And my reasoning behind this was because I wanted to use some glitter polishes or some glitter dip powders, excuse me, as accent nails for any color that I decided to add to my collection. So I wanted to pick up a silver, which is sterling. I also have this gorgeous, gorgeous gold. This is called Strike Gold. And I picked up Strike Gold because it has these chunkier holographic glitters in there. Sterling is just a straight silver glitter, but Strike Gold has these, like I said, holographic, like chunkier holographic glitters in there, which just really make it pop. And then the last glitter that I have in my collection is Tahitian Princess, and it's this gorgeous like rose goldy pink, and it's the same style of glitter that Strike Gold is. So it's got that pink glitter, that rose gold glitter, and then that chunkier holographic glitter in there. So these two are my favorite glitters that I have so far in my collection, and I would absolutely pick up more of these colors, but I'm trying to limit how many of these dip powders that I get because I really only use them for myself. So yeah, that is it. That is kind of my demo and review of the Kiara Sky Dip system, along with all of the swatches of the colors that I currently have in my collection. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.